So he says that Christianity is going to be viewed as irrational by certain people you meet, right? I mean, that's just the case. But not all people will mean the same thing by that. And so what he wants to do now is to show us some distinctions so that we can understand very clearly the different kinds of irrationality with which we might be charged, right? And so actually he's going to talk about Eventually, he's going to talk about three of them, but first he's going to deal with two, and then he's going to get to the third one where he says is the most difficult one, I guess, right? So he says some people claim that the idea of God becoming a man, the incarnation, right, Jesus became a man, is a logical contradiction, right? And he says for them, this idea of there being a God-man is incoherent. It's a violation of the alleged laws of logic. And so when they charge Christianity with being irrational, what they mean is that it is contrary to the rules of logic, that it is illogical. So that's one way that Christianity is charged with being irrational. It is it's illogical, right? It's contrary to the rules of logic.
Right. And here's another way that Christians might be considered irrational. There's no observational, scientific, or historical substantiation for the magnificent claims that are made in the Bible, and yet you believe them. Yeah. For instance, the Bible tells us that Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes, and he raised the dead. When someone claims that believing these events is irrational, what they mean is that there's no evidence for them. There's nothing that you can put in a petri dish. There's nothing that you can put under the microscope. There's nothing that you can rewind the tape. Play that again. Let's see. Okay, puts a towel over it, and boom, there it is. Oh, I've seen magicians do this before. There's no scientific explanation for them, is what they're saying here. Right. They're claiming that these are empirical defects in the claims made by Christians or in claims found in the Bible. Right. And at least they're dealing with facts in the Bible, at least.
Yeah, good, right? And so these two aspects, these two ways here, this next section is called rationalism and empiricism, and that's what he's trying to explain here. He says, in the ancient world among the Greek philosophers, there were two basic approaches to doing philosophy. Thinking is believing, and seeing is believing, right? And so on the first approach, thinking is believing, he says we can simplify it by saying that some philosophers think if you want to figure out the world and the way it is, then you have to stop and think about it, right? So that's the first way. Philosophers who follow this stop and think technique, he says, were rationalists. So that's rationalism,
right? And so you're thinking about it. You're fitting these base facts within confines of what you think is rational in the world, and then you meet some outlying thing, and then you have to either come up with a new law that exists in the universe of some point, or exists in not the mind, but the brain of the person, and then is useful, and then coheres with the system as a whole. And so, we think, oh, this is very logical. Religion is just a foundation by which species survive. And so there's nothing outside of man. It's just man internalizing an ability to use evolutionary survival of the fittest attitudes that get us to a greater survivability if we believe in more than just ourselves out in the universe. So that would be one way that we could say, this person says there's evidence for God, and the rationalist would go, oh, but I can think about this in a logical way that incorporates it to my base assumption in that